Well, our team coverage of the January 6th hearing continues now. Let's bring in ABC News contributors Barbara Comstock, former Republican Congresswoman from Virginia, and former Democratic Senator for North Dakota, Heidi Heitkamp. So, Heidi, first, we're going to hear from those two former Trump officials who resigned shortly after January 6th. They're expected to testify publicly tonight. And in general, what are you looking for as this portion of the congressional hearings on January 6th winds up?
I think I'm looking for new information. And by that, I mean those of us who watched that day. I think, Terry, you and I were on the air together, kind of watching this unfold. We waited for him to say something. Governor Christie said it was on ABC and said, look, I'm trying to get a hold of the president, tell him to call it off. There was this rush, and we saw him do nothing. And then his first report was really a horrific, I love you kind of report, without even encouraging or condemning the activities. And so what was really happening inside the White House? And we've heard kind of hearsay reports about, well, he seemed to be pretty happy about this. I think what I'm hoping we hear is in real time, what was the president thinking? Why didn't he call off the mob? And the one thing politically that isn't getting talked enough about is that these hearings are having impact because we're all watching it again. We're watching the Capitol get breached. We're watching this horrific events unfold, and we're going to see a lot of that again tonight in real time. Here's what's actually happening at the Capitol. This is what the president's reaction is. And people are going to continue to be pretty disgusted with the leader of the free world who did not defend the symbol of democracy. And I think that's why Donald Trump has been so aggressive in trying to condemn the hearings and angry that he doesn't have anyone defending him.
And you can tell he does not like what he's seeing. He's been castigating Republican leader Kevin McCarthy for not appointing some of his allies to that committee. Barbara, I want to go to you. How do you think these hearings are playing out politically? I guess you were agreeing during our interview with the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia there. Do you think he's right that this is having this gradual, almost glacial effect on Republicans?
Yes, well, I think at each turn in each hearing, what we're finding out is that it was worse than we thought. When you look at, say, Jonathan Karl's book, he basically had the outlines of it, but then we get these hearings, and it's worse than what Jonathan Karl's book said. For example, with Matthew Pottinger, he had the outlines of, Matthew was trying to find out why we haven't sent over the National Guard yet. But I think tonight with the hearings, you're going to find out that it was actually worse. Because for those 3 hours when Donald Trump was just sitting there doing nothing, there were more people calling in to Donald Trump than we know. There was more going on trying to get him to do something than we've known to date. And he was being more belligerent than we've known to date. So, I mean, it's just really, we all were, on air that day talking and trying to find out, how could you possibly be watching this on TV? I mean, I was talking to texting with my former colleagues who were, hiding under tables in their offices or, cowering in the Capitol. And to know that Donald Trump was watching this on TV, I mean, I was watching it from 1 o'clock and knew it was a dangerous situation. And to know that he was watching it and tweeting out, inflammatory comments that his own staff knew was pouring gasoline on it and trying to get him to do something, and he was egging it on. And then he was calling them and saying, hey, they were calling him, hey, Kevin, maybe they're more upset than you are and care about it more. That the night before, Sarah Matthews has now testified saying, hey, well, we need to get those rhinos, to change their mind. That he was doing this and he planned to do this because he was trying to get the rhinos and Mike Pence to change their mind. That he called Tommy Tupperville to change their mind. So I think we're going to, again, find out this dereliction of duty, which is going to be shown, I think, very well by two members of the military in Congress, Congressman Adam Kinzinger and Congresswoman Elaine Luria, who have served and understand the obligation to protect and defend the country is something that Donald Trump has never understood, and he was grossly deficient in his obligations and did not on that day defend or protect the country, and that's why he should never be near this office again.
And that is a very good summary of the storyline, but also the case, right? The case that has been built in these hearings against Donald Trump. And Heidi, there's a poll out. It says 57% of Americans, which is up from 53% in January, now say that former President Trump should be charged with crimes based on the evidence that has been presented in these hearings. That same poll actually found that 61% don't think he'll be charged. And I want to ask about that, and also the skepticism that some people have, including me, that the president of one party, his government bringing criminal charges against his predecessor from the other party, is something that we don't want to embrace unless we absolutely have to. What do you think of that?
Well, I share Merrick Garland's opinion. If there was a crime committed, it should be charged regardless of whether the president is a Democrat and the former president was a Republican. This is very real. It's concerning, but I think that you have to remember it's not just enough to convince people that what the president did was wrong, dereliction of duty. You've got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he is in fact committed a crime that is actionable under the criminal code. And I think that's a more difficult and heavy lift. And so, yes, I share the frustration of those 57% who say, how can he get by with this? But I also, as a lawyer and somebody who has been involved in prosecutions, I also understand the need for the Justice Department to proceed very cautiously, not just because it's their obligation to do the right thing under the law, but this is a very sensitive matter and it needs to be done correctly. And so when Merrick Garland looks at the camera and says, wait a minute, I'm going to do what I need to do under the law, believe him. He's a straight shooter.
He is that kind of lawyer, and way back to the Oklahoma City bombings trial that he tried, he builds a case methodically, carefully, one that will win in the end. And Barbara, I want to ask you, play a thought experiment, right? So Republicans have been criticizing this committee because there's no cross-examination of witnesses. It's a very different kind of hearing that we've been seeing, carefully choreographed, well-produced from a television perspective. Would it have been better? Would it have been more credible to the Trump supporters out there if there had been Republicans who didn't want to go along with the storyline that was being scripted?
No, well, listen, every witness has been a Republican witness. So the testimony that has been brought forward are all people who have been, people who worked at the White House, usually up and through January 6th, people who were, in many cases, reluctant witnesses. Listen, we had, Pat Cipollone had to been, brought there, dragged and kicked, kicking to, after Cassidy Hutchinson testified. So these are all people who worked and served Donald Trump, but finally had to come out and, after their documents came and after other witnesses came. So I think it has been very effective work. It's been documented, and the Justice Department will have to, as Heidi said, they'll have to carefully look at this, and I think no one should be above the law. I think he will be indicted, and he should be, and no one should be above the law.
Right, and that will be a decision, and as you say, almost all the witnesses have been Republicans from inside the Trump inner circle. Barbara, Heidi, thanks very much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.